Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and if you are in the market for retro games and you're looking for Dreamcast games, I've got 8 that I wanted to share with you because I think they're going to be worth looking at if you're starting a Dreamcast collection, or if you've ever wanted to play these games, because I think most, if not all, of these games are locked to the Dreamcast. And if I'm wrong, you can let me know down in the comments, as you typically do. Now, after I go through these 8, I did just want to talk a little bit about a comment that I got on my channel that I thought really needs a conversation, just because I've heard it a few times. So without wasting any time, let's talk about this first game. And this is Spawn. Now, this is Spawn in the Demon's Hand. Now, I've played 4 different Spawn video games, and I'm sure there are more out there, but I've played Spawn on the Super Nintendo, which that's kind of like an action platforming beat 'em up style game. And it's not the most exciting Super Nintendo game, but it's a decent Spawn game. I've actually bought and sold that game a few times. And every time I think I don't want it in my collection, and I'm like, I want it back in my collection. I don't currently have it in my collection now, because I sold it, but I may get it back. The other Spawn game that I've had, which I also sold, was Spawn on the PlayStation 1. Um, that I think the scariest thing about that game were the graphics. They were horrible, like horrific. Like, I could not, like, the concept was great. Um, it's definitely Spawn, so it has all that, really scary look to it, but I just could not deal with those graphics. So I had to trade it away. And that Spawn game on the PlayStation 2 at the time did have some value. I think that was like a $40 game at the time. I don't know where it's at now, but that was a decent one. My favorite Spawn game out of all the Spawn games that I've played is Spawn Armageddon. And I think that's available on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. I currently have it on the PS2. But that's my favorite Spawn game. It's kind of like a linear 3D action adventure game where Spawn has a number of different powers. He has different weapons. You can use guns in that game. You can use his chains to like shred enemies apart. You can use his chains to leap onto buildings. You can throw like energy blasts at people. Like, it's just really cool. It just uses all of Spawn's powers, which is just really cool. Spawn has a bunch of like just pretty cool powers and abilities, so I really like that one. This version of Spawn is a version of Spawn that's pretty much an arena style battle game. So it's kind of like a fighter, but it's like an arena style fighter where you can play through like all the different Spawn characters from the Spawn games. And I guess just battle your way to the top. There is a multiplayer aspect to it as well, but the graphics on this game are pretty dang good, I would say. Right on par with like the PS2, maybe even better than the PS2 version of Spawn, but some really good graphics on here. It's a battle royale style game, and if you're into that, then you'll like this game. There were a few games like this on the Dreamcast, but yeah, this is one that's pretty cool. So Spawn, be on the lookout for that one. This Spawn game, it can fetch a couple dollars. It's not the cheapest game on the Dreamcast, I'll just say that. Next game, Canon Spike. I actually posted this on my community page earlier today because I found a bunch of these games as I was just sorting through my games. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but, Canon Spike is a very short but action-packed, top-down, like, shooter. It feels like a twin-stick shooter, but it's not, because the Dreamcast only had one analog stick, but it's really cool. I think the coolest thing about this game is just the different Capcom characters that are in it. Obviously, you see Charlie on the cover there from Street Fighter. It's got Mega Man in it, a few other pretty cool characters in there. So I think this is just a really cool kind of like shooter style game. This is one that I would definitely check out. If you like top-down shoot 'em up games, you will like this one. Very, very cool game. It's not on any other console or platform, I don't think. That is another really cool Dreamcast game to check out. Here goes a gem, if I've ever seen one. Elemental Gimmick Gear. Now, the Dreamcast has a few RPGs that I do like. I've probably played more RPGs on the Dreamcast when it's really not a console that's known for RPGs. I think it's more of like an arcade console, like most Sega consoles are. But Elemental Gimmick Gear is a really cool one because what drew me to this game was the hand-drawn art style when you're kind of navigating the levels, and then it kind of changes into this 3D graphical style when you actually enter the battles. Um, Very interesting controls, very interesting story. I think the story is the most intriguing part about this game. I love the cover art too. I think it's really colorful and beautiful. But as you can see, Elemental Gimmick Gear has just some really cool hand-drawn graphics, and then once you start to get into those battles, it kind of just transforms into this really cool 3D battle mode. So kind of reminds me of Xenogears in that way. But really cool game. Check it out. It's an RPG. I think you'll dig it. Now we're gonna get into some real action. So there's not a lot of like action adventure like beat 'em up style games on the Dreamcast. And a lot of them really aren't that good. Dynamite Cop, in my opinion, is probably one of the best, if not the best, kind of 3D beat 'em up on the Dreamcast, because it just, in a lot of ways, it feels like the part 2 of Die Hard Arcade. That's really what it feels like. If you've ever played Die Hard Arcade, either in the arcade or on the Sega Saturn, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Just a lot of like, action-packed beat 'em up action. You got different weapons that you could pick up. There's like these little mini quick time events. There's pretty cool stuff. If you like that arcade action beat 'em up feel, you'll definitely dig this game. And if you're a fan of Die Hard Arcade, you will like this game. I think this is a cool one to check out on the Dreamcast for sure. Here we have an RPG. I have never beaten Skies of Arcadia, but this is one of the more like I said, Dreamcast I don't think is known for its RPGs, but Skies of Arcadia is actually like a pretty good RPG. And it was pretty expensive on the Dreamcast. I don't know if it still is. Like I said, I haven't really dove too deep into this one, so I don't have a ton on this. I know that there's a Skies of Arcadia on the GameCube, but I don't think it's like the same exact story with the same exact characters. I could be wrong. You guys can let me know down in the comments. But I don't know if this exact version of Skies of Arcadia has ever been ported to another system. But like I said, you guys can let me know down in the comments. Here's a good one. You want a little adventure, you want a little hack and slash. Sword of the Berserk Guts Rage. Now, there is a Sword of the Berserk on the PlayStation 4 that, like, up to a couple years ago, you could still find in GameStop. They're all gone now. And at one point, that game shot up to like $70, $75. I don't know where it's at now. I don't know if it's gone down or gone up, but it's definitely one of those ones that you're not going to find anymore on the PlayStation 4. But this is where it all started. This game is really cool. It has a lot of really cool like cinematic cutscenes, has some pretty cool quick time events, a lot of hacking and slashing on this one. I like how they change up the enemies in this one. There's a lot of different enemies in this game that you get to battle through, and the story is just pretty darn interesting. And the graphics are really good. For Dreamcast, I mean, dang, when you play a game like this, you're like, dude, this was what the Dreamcast was putting out back in the day. I mean, like, yeah, like, look at it. Like, this is, like, pretty good for Dreamcast. I mean, and this is why I say, like, when I think about games like Sword of the Berserk Guts Rage, this is why it's hard to impress people with graphics anymore, because the Dreamcast graphics rival, like, PS3 graphics when it comes to certain games. And Sword of the Berserk is definitely one of them. If you don't know, check it out. If you don't have it or don't want to pay for it, just look up some video. Pretty good looking game, and it's a fun one. It's a fun hack and slasher. Next one. So I mentioned before that there's some pretty cool like arena style like fighters. And Heavy Metal Geomatrix is another one of those games. I saw a video where someone was saying that if they come out with like another Capcom Classics collection or whatever, that they would need to include like a Heavy Metal Geomatrix or maybe even like a Canon Spike on that. I don't know if the Capcom would ever do that. It would be cool if they did though. But this is kind of like an arena style fighting game. Where everyone is kind of clad in that whole what's that comic book that was really gothic? And it had the chick on the cover. Sorry, I don't know if chick it can be used now. Maybe let me be politically correct. It had the woman on the cover. She was always dressed in like what looked like a black leather costume. It always looked like she was like in a bustier of some sort. I can't remember the name of that comic, but you guys know what I'm talking about. I used to see it in the comic book store all the time. It's very gothic. Oh man, it's not coming to me. But basically, this is like a very gothic style arena fighting game. The characters all have this interesting look to them. A lot of weapons. Like I think you can go around the different stages and pick up weapons and battle it out. This is a very unique game. One that I have only seen on the Dreamcast, and I don't know if it's locked to the Dreamcast or not. I don't know if they came out with like a PC version of this game. I don't know if I've ever seen that game on any other console, but definitely one that you should check out for or look out for if you are collecting for the Dreamcast. Very unique and fun game. And I've got more Dreamcast games that I could show you, but I'll end off on this one because this is in my top 5 of all time shoot 'em ups. Mars Matrix is a dope shoot 'em up. One of the things that I like about Mars Matrix is it uses the mechanic, and I think there's a few shoot 'em ups that do this, but you don't get a bomb in Mars Matrix. What you get is you get like this gauge that allows you to absorb all of the enemy attacks, like all of the bullets on the screen. You can absorb them and then unleash them in one blast. But you can't do that move before waiting like 5 or 10 seconds. You have to give the gauge time to like recharge, and it takes like 10 seconds for it to recharge. So it's very useful, very useful, especially when you get to one of those bosses where there's just bullets all over the screen. But Mars Matrix is one of those games, one of those shoot 'em ups that you have to learn the levels, you have to learn enemy attack patterns, and you have to know when the screen is going to be filled up with the most amount of enemy fire so that you can absorb it all and then unleash that attack at the right time. And then you kind of just have to use that attack very wisely. You can't use it at the wrong time because then when you need it, you'll be too busy charging. And I just think that mechanic alone is really cool. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of Ikaruga, which is another one of my, Ikaruga is probably in my top 10 shoot 'em ups. I don't know if it's in my top 5. Maybe I'll do like a top 10 shoot 'em ups in my collection. I've got a lot. And I've never really set out to collect all of the shoot 'em ups because there's just so many now. There were already so many on the Sega Saturn. There's a few really good ones on the PlayStation 1. There were obviously the Genesis, is home to so many of the best shoot 'em ups of all time. There are a few good ones on the Super Nintendo. The Neo Geo definitely has some of the top 10 shoot 'em ups of all time. TurboGrafx also has some good ones. Sega CD has a couple good ones as well. PlayStation 2, I feel like that Gen 6 era is, to me, where shoot 'em up started to really, go to the toilet. I know there's, a few good ones, but I sold off, I want to say, a lot of the shoot 'em ups I've had on my PlayStation 2. I had Castle of Shikigami 2, I think, at one point. I sold that because it just didn't have the same feel. The only Gen 6 shoot 'em ups that I guess I would say that I still have is obviously Ikaruga. I have it on the GameCube. I know they re-released it on the Switch, but I have it there. Chaos Field but I also have Chaos Field on the Ultimate Shooting Collection on the Wii, so I have it there as well. Castle of Shikigami 3, I have that on the Wii. So that's a cool shoot 'em up that transcended past Gen 5. I'm just trying to think of shoot 'em ups that transcended Gen 5. I've got Gradius 5 on the PlayStation 2, but that's more of a novelty. I don't even really play it. I had Raiden 4 or Raiden 3, I want to say, on the PlayStation 2 at one point, but that's another one that I wasn't really playing a ton. I feel like the glory days, the heyday of shoot 'em ups, where it's definitely the 16-32-bit era, Sega Genesis, Neo Geo, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx, and even a little bit into Gen 5, PlayStation 1. There's even a pretty cool one on the N64 that I have. In some ways, actually that game is kind of trash. There's a shoot 'em up on the N64 that I have, and I think I just have it because I like having at least one shoot 'em up on every system. But I'm going off on a tangent about shoot 'em ups. Let me get to what I wanted to talk about when it came to the comment. So the comment that someone left on my channel or I think today maybe, was that modern games are trash. I hear people say that a lot, and I hear people say that the reason why people are going back to retro is because modern games are trash. They say like, well, retro is not gonna die because people hate the games that are coming out now or hate modern gaming. And I don't know if when they say modern gaming, they're referring to like the PlayStation 5 and the latest Xbox, or if they're also including like the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 in that. Because, and a strong argument could be made that the PlayStation 4 and Switch libraries are pretty dang good. Do I think I would not try and collect for the Switch or complete a Switch library, because the Nintendo Switch literally has over 5,000 games. It would take you easily over $150,000 to try and even come close to completing a Nintendo Switch library. So that's just an exercise in futility to me. Like, that's dumb. Like, even attempting to, and I'm sure there are people who will attempt to do it. There might even be people who do it. But for the average person, or even for the above average person, trying to collect the entire Switch library is just not going to happen. Be that as it may, the Switch and PlayStation 4 do have great games that are original to both systems, and games that came out during their generation. Now, granted, PS4 does have a ton of remakes. We know that. We also know that a ton of Wii U, GameCube, and even N64 games were remastered and remixed on the Switch. We know that. But when I say that they have great libraries, I'm really more so referring to like third-party developers, indie developers, folks that added their own, put their own spin on gaming for both of those consoles. So let me know down in the comments, for you folks who say modern gaming is trash, are you including the PlayStation 4 and Switch in that? Or are you just talking about this current gen, like the 8th gen, like PS5 and like the latest Xbox? Let me know down in the comments, because I'm really interested to know that. And then why? Like, why is modern gaming trash? Is it lack of innovation? Is it the technical aspect of the whole game not being on the disc or the cartridge? You got to download stuff. Let me know, because I'm interested to hear thoughts on this. I've seen this comment on my channel a number of times, so I really want to know. Apologies for not being able to drop one of my edited videos. I have to get a new cord for my microphone. It's something that I wanted to do today, but I just didn't get a chance to do it. But I do have to get a new AV audio cord for my mic, because it's shorting and it's not picking up any sound. So that is killing my ability to record for you guys. I didn't get to pick it up because I spent literally the entire weekend outside. It was a beautiful weekend, like fantastic weather. Like, I don't think the weather could have been any more perfect than it was this weekend. Yeah, I mean, perfect, like perfection. Hopefully you got out and got a chance to enjoy it. If not, I think we should be getting some more good weather this week, so hopefully you'll get a chance to get out. And until the next video, that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. Have a good night, folks.